super cold that day, so I hope you like that. Hello, I'm Andre Correa, and this is AndreCorreaNow, a show about the art of filmmaking, the craft behind it, and the technologies that make it all possible. Friends, we all know that everything I say on this channel is the objective truth, and not just another fever dream sprouting from a frail mind on the last stages of decline. So when I tell you that the Tokina 11-20mm f2.8 is one of the best lenses for APS-C and Super 35 shooters, I expect you to believe me. However, if you are one of the few and faithful souls amongst us, rest assured that in the next few minutes, I'm going to be going over some key features of this super wide, affordable lens, ultimately proving all of my outlandish claims with some sweet B-roll. But before we do all that, my core mandated psychiatrist, who I'm actively trying to hook up with, is always telling me how I should be more humble and ask for the things I want. So please, subscribe. Narratively speaking, ultra-wide lenses can help you create a sense of wonder. And although not the only thing necessary for world building, a wide shot revealing the character's environment draws the audience into your story, and it helps them identify with the hero's struggle. Another unique characteristic of a super wide lens is how movement from and towards the camera is heightened when compared to normal lenses. This comes in handy in some action shots where you may want to make the scene more dynamic. Although super wide lenses such as the Tokina 11-20mm f2.8 can help the audience feel like they're part of your film, more down-to-earth productions, such as documentaries, can equally use these lenses to create a more personal, photojournalistic look. Starting with some technical specs, the 11-20 has a maximum and constant aperture of f2.8. It's built with 14 elements in 12 groups with 9 aperture blades, which sounds suspiciously similar to its cinema sibling that costs a lot more than this photo version. And this is a very good thing because you get a very similar image for a fraction of the cost. The build quality of the Tokina 11-20 is very good, and at 570 grams, this lens will work just fine even in older gimbals. It has a filter thread of 82mm, which I prefer because I have other lenses with the same filter size, so bonus for me. But if you have smaller filters, you will need to buy bigger ones because using a step-down ring is not going to work due to heavy vignetting. But the main thing here that's so special for me is the focus mechanism. And I think this is a point that has been missed by some other online personalities who I'm sure you have already watched. Yeah, I know you cheat. Going from YouTuber to YouTuber? Why do you like to hurt me? Although some have complained about the clutch mechanism, and I agree, that the way it feels when you go from autofocus to manual focus could be improved, this lens is not fly-by-wire, and it has hard stops. That makes setting up a wireless follow focus system, such as the tilted Nucleus Nano or the Focus Plus Pro from Metachrome, a one-step operation. And although both systems can be used with mechanically coupled lenses without hard stops, like the Sigma 18-35, the calibration process is tedious and imprecise. For example, when I'm calibrating the Nano, I have to let it know when the focus throw starts and when it ends. To do so, I have to remove the motor, set the lens to its closest focusing distance, set the control wheel to either 000 or 999 depending on which side of the rig the motor is on, reattach the motor, double tap the cal button, use the control wheel to reach the infinity mark on the lens manually, then finally letting it know where the range ends by double tapping the cal button again. This can be especially frustrating because you have to recalibrate the lens every time you lose power. The same applies for AndreCorreaNow's Focus Plus Pro. Although, with AndreCorreaNow, all you have to do is manually stop the lens during the calibration process if the lens doesn't have hard stops. But because the Tokina 11-20 does, each system would automatically detect where the focus range starts and ends, and it will map the lens correctly every time. This was the number one reason why I bought this lens with my own money. No one sent it to me. Having hard stops eliminates a lot of the headaches associated with calibrating the lens, and if this was the only good thing about it, I would still recommend it to anybody who uses a focus control system. But the good news doesn't stop here, because the Tokina 11-20mm f2.8 has no focus breathing I can detect. This is my Sigma 50-100. I also love this lens, but the focus breathing is pretty bad. Notice how when I move the focus, the entire image seems to zoom. This can be somewhat attributed to the lens's focal range, telephoto in nature, but the good news is, again, the Tokina has none of it. And speaking of zooming, it's all internal. Maybe you don't mind your front element moving around, but I do. For one thing, the internal zoom will prevent the lens from creeping, which is when the lens focal length changes due to gravity when the lens is pointing down. The other thing I realized is that this lens is almost parfocal, or at least it seems to be. Because of its physical characteristics, it seems that you can maintain the focus for a good portion of the zoom range. This is especially the case if you can close down a bit. When it comes to image quality, all I can say is that for the retail value of $529, Tokina is giving you an amazing value. My Sony 10-18mm f4 costs twice as much, and although that lens has some very unique advantages over the Tokina, the image quality is not as good. Either way, you can find the affiliate links for the best prices for the Tokina 11-20mm f2.8 and all other items I mentioned in this video in the descriptions below. When you use these links to make a purchase, you'll be automatically helping the growth of this channel because I will earn a small commission from your purchase at no additional cost to you. Another advantage of the Tokina is that it seems to be rectilinear. This means you won't get any distortions associated with the ultra-wide lens where the side of the images appear to bow out. The Tokina is also much more flexible than other ultra-wide Super 35 offerings because the Tokina can be used on multiple camera systems because it has an EF mount. Now, this is not supported by Sigma, it's not supported by Tokina, but I'm very happy to report to you that you can use this lens with a Sigma MC11 adapter on E-mount. The only drawback is that you have no autofocus in video mode, and you only have contrast detection in photo mode. Now, I bought this lens knowing about this limitation and intending to use it only as a mechanical lens with my Sony mirrorless and a wireless follow focus system, again, because it has hard stops. On my Canon T6i, the autofocus works fine in photo and video mode, and although the autofocus in the Tokina 11-20mm f2.8 is louder and not as fast as a Canon 10-18 STM, I don't mind. I also don't miss the 10mm focal length because the extra stops of light you gain from the Tokina's maximum aperture of f2.8 more than make up for it. Having said all that, the Canon 10-18mm is also a very good lens, and if you're exclusively vlogging with your Canon camera, that lens might be better for you because of how quiet and fast the autofocus is. I used to own the Canon 10-18, but ultimately I sold it to buy the Tokina 11-20, and I'm very happy with that choice. The Tokina is well worth its asking price, especially when you consider how flexible it is. You can mount it on a Pocket 6K, a Zcam S6, or even a Red Komodo and get amazing images. It also complements the Sigma 18-35 and 50-100 very well. However, I wouldn't buy it for a full-frame camera unless your sensor has the ability to crop into Super 35 mode. But non-full-frame shooters will love it. Now for some things you should keep in mind. First, vignetting. It's usually not a problem unless you're stacking filters at 11mm. And if you zoom in to about 12mm, the problem goes away. I'm also very happy to report that there is no vignetting when using the Tilta Mini Matte Box. If you can, use the solid ND while filming outdoors. Even high-quality filters like the Freewell Variable ND will create some unwanted results when the lens is zoomed past 16mm. This is not the fault of the filter, and it's not the fault of the lens. This is just physics. Now, some of you young G's might be saying, "Yo, Drake, that's tight, but can I vlog with it?" Yes, you can, but you'd be better off using a camera that has dual pixel continuous autofocus from Canon. And although I wouldn't say that this lens is a heavy lens, it's certainly heavier than both Canon and Sony 10-18 offerings. But if vlogging is your main thing, this may not be the lens for you. I would say that the Canon 10-18, the Sony 10-18, even the Tamron 11-20 are going to be better options, only because they're lighter and the autofocus is so much better. I would say this lens is ideal for somebody who, like me, who really wants mechanical focus control. And that's the reason why I got it. But if vlogging is your thing, there might be greener pastures around the horizon. The other thing to keep in mind is that this lens does not have image stabilization, so you are going to depend on your camera's IBIS, or you will need to use a gimbal in order to get smooth shots. As far as purple fringing in high contrast areas go, I think the Tokina handles it well. You can see it sometimes, but this is yet another characteristic common to ultra-wide lenses. I think this is very manageable and will not be a problem in most filming scenarios indoors or at night. I would also keep in mind that this lens is not weather sealed, so filming on sinking ships or in the Amazon during rainy season is completely out of the question. But the benefit, versatility, and value this lens brings to my arsenal far outweighs some of its small limitations. And let's be clear, every lens has limitations. But the ability to mount across multiple platforms is perfect for those using more than one camera brand, especially since the Sony 10-18 is less adaptable and it relies on the camera to correct for distortions, while the Tokina does so using its superior optics. I'm keeping my Sony 10-18 because it's amazing autofocus, lightweight, and image stabilization. And I'm definitely keeping the Tokina 11-20 f2.8 because even though these lenses have very similar focal ranges, each have very specific strengths, which allow me to get the shots I want in almost any scenario. If you find they need Cine gears, an exchangeable mount, and an all-metal construction that can survive a nuclear winter, then the Cine version of this lens, the Tokina 11-20mm t2.9 for $2,399. Yes, you heard that right. Might be right for you. But for the rest of us, this photo version will do just fine. But that's it. I'm Andre Correa. This was AndreCorreaNow, and I'll catch you when I catch you.